Bio-Geo-Chemical Cycles. The Santa Barbara Channel oil and gas seeps. 6 to 8 million years ago, fine sediment was deposited on the ocean floor. The sediment was rich with the bodies of trillions of microscopic plankton organisms, which are algae and animals. The sediment was transformed eventually into sedimentary rock, and the organic material was transformed into oil and gas. About 100 barrels of oil seeped from the coal oil point at the University of California, Santa Barbara shore, and about 57,000 cubic meters of natural gas are released every day. Seawater is tremendously able to capture the methane, and bacteria in the water feed on the methane. The ocean and bacteria remove half of the methane leaking from the seeps. Only about 1% of the methane that is dissolved in the seawater is released into the atmosphere. To limit the seepage, 2 large steel seep tents 30 meters by 30 meters have been placed over the seeps, and methane is collected and moved to the shore through pipelines. Also, petroleum is pumped from a nearby platform to decrease the pressure, which is causing the seepage. Quick quiz. Describe the coal oil point seeps off the UCSB coast. Are the seeps naturally occurring or man-made? Earth, a peculiar planet. Earth is the only planet in our solar system that has a combination of 4 characteristics. Liquid water. Water at its triple point, which is liquid, gas, and solid phases at the same time. Plate tectonics and life. Oxygen. Photosynthetic organisms in the Earth 3.4 billion years ago generated the first free oxygen on Earth. Iron in the ocean 2.5 billion years ago formed pyrite, which means that oxygen was very scarce. If there had been a high volume of dissolved oxygen, the iron would have formed iron oxide, which is rust. 1.9 billion years ago, photosynthesis was firmly established. But before that, organisms were able to get their energy primarily through fermentation, which is an anaerobic process and does not occur in oxygen-rich environments. The geologic cycle. The process by which landforms are shaped by balancing endogenic, which are the building up, and exogenic, which are the wearing down systems. The interaction between hydrologic, tectonic, and rock cycles. This is an illustration of the complex geologic cycle as the hydrologic, or the water, the rock, and the tectonic cycles interact. The rock cycle. Sedimentary rock forms sand and sediments within a layer in bodies of water. Minerals precipitate from the sediments. Cementation takes place, which is the consolidation of the sediment. The rock cycle. Igneous rock. Molten magma, gas, and water vapor rise through the mantle to the surface because of relative density. At the mid-ocean ridge, new ocean floor forms. As the new rock is created, it pushes out towards the continents. At the continental plate, the oceanic plate is basalt and is very dense. The rock is subducted, melts, and forms volcanic magma pools. The magma pools become pressurized and through magma vents release magma onto the surface. At the median of plates, the rock is thrown up into mountains if the plates collide. This is a simplified illustration of the rock cycle, and this is a more complex version of the rock cycle. Quick quiz. Briefly compare sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous rock. The hydrologic cycle. Hydrologic cycle consists of evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, runoff, infiltration, and groundwater. Evaporation. Heat causes liquid water to become water vapor, which is a gas. The warmer, moisture-laden air rises. As it reaches a certain altitude, the colder surrounding temperature causes the water vapor to condense. Transpiration. Tree leaves sweat water. The water evaporates. Water rises in the air, forming clouds of water vapor, which is a gas. The water vapor condenses when it reaches the cold air in the higher altitudes. This is what causes the clouds in the cloud forest. Condensation. The water vapor condenses around a central dust particle. We call this nucleation. The water droplet becomes larger and larger until it reaches a critical size. Precipitation. A water droplet forms around a dust particle. The point where the droplet can no longer be suspended in the air, it falls. And it falls in the form of rain, sleet, snow, and sometimes ice. Runoff. Surface runoff forms with the excess of storm water or meltwater flowing along the surface of the earth. Groundwater. Groundwater is water within the earth and is caused by infiltration, groundwater recharge, or deep percolation, which are basically three different terms for the same process of water seeping into the earth. Is when water moves from surface water to groundwater. Groundwater is the water beneath the earth's surface, in soil pore spaces and fractures of rock formations. Aquifer. Water seeping through the rock in an underground lake of spongy rock. This is an illustration of the hydrologic cycle. So notice we have a number of different processes causing the water to move into the atmosphere and causing the water to fall onto the earth and then become groundwater. Quick quiz. How do rain clouds form? How does groundwater form? The carbon cycle. Sources of atmospheric carbon: burning of fossil fuels, burning of forests, decay, and respiration. Carbon cycle removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide dissolves in the ocean. Phytoplankton uses carbon for photosynthesis. Plants use carbon for photosynthesis. Dissolved carbon in water forms deep sediment. Carbon in sediment forms rock. This is a complex illustration of the carbon cycle, where CO2 is within the atmosphere. It's dissolved in the ocean, makes its way into organisms, eventually into decaying matter and soil, and the cycle continues. Quick quiz. How is CO2 released into the atmosphere? How is CO2 removed from the atmosphere? The nitrogen cycle. Atmospheric nitrogen. Gaseous nitrogen in the atmosphere is not usable for plants and animals because of a strong triple bond, making it impossible for the organism to incorporate it into their cells. Bacteria living at the roots of legume plants are able to transform that nitrogen gas, or N2, into ammonium, NH4+, which is a form that organisms can use. High-energy events such as lightning and forest fires also have the same effect. The high energy can break the triple bonds to transform N2 nitrogen gas into ammonium NH4+. Nitrogen uptake. The ammonium NH4+ produced by nitrogen-fixing bacteria is quickly taken up by the host plant, the bacteria itself, or soil organisms, and incorporated into proteins in the organism or nitrogen compounds like DNA. When higher level organisms eat, they are taking in nitrogen that was fixed initially by nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Nitrification. Some of the ammonium is converted to nitrate, NO3- by nitrification. The bacteria that carries out nitrification gains energy from it. Nitrification requires oxygen, so the soil or water must be oxygen-rich. The negative effects of nitrification are the ammonia ions are positively charged, so they stick to the clay soil, but the negatively charged nitrate, NO3-, easily washes out of the soil, causing nitrogen depletion and nitrate pollution of surface water. Denitrification. Denitrification is the movement here where oxidized forms of nitrogen are converted into N2. So we begin with nitrate, which is NO3-, becoming nitrite, which is NO2-, becoming nitric oxide, which is NO, becoming N2O, and ultimately becoming nitrogen gas. Nitric oxide, NO, contributes to smog, and nitrous oxide, which is N2O, this is nitrous oxide, is a greenhouse gas. So these products are actually pollutants. Denitrification is the only nitrogen process that removes nitrogen from the ecosystem. It is irreversible where N2 becomes atmospheric. It balances the amount of nitrogen fixed with the amount returned to the atmosphere. This is the nitrogen cycle. Quick quiz. What form must nitrogen take to be incorporated into organisms? The phosphorus cycle. The phosphorus cycle is a simple cycle where phosphorus cycles through rock, water, soil, sediments, and organisms. Rain and weathering cause rocks to release phosphate ions and other minerals. This inorganic phosphate is then distributed in soils and water. Plants take up inorganic phosphate from the soil. The plants may then be consumed by animals. Once in the plant or animal, the phosphate is incorporated into organic molecules such as DNA. When the plant or animal dies, it decays, and the organic phosphate is returned to the soil. Within the soil, organic forms of phosphate can be made available to plants by bacteria that break down organic matter into inorganic forms of phosphorus. This process is called mineralization. Phosphorus in soil can end up in waterways and eventually oceans. Once there, it is incorporated into sediments over time. This is a simple illustration of the phosphorus cycle. Where does the phosphorus originate?